In 2017, I sought out to create the Box, an ergonomic controller with all digital inputs. Although I originally viewed the Box as a niche device, it would go on to become a popular option within the Melee community. Nowadays, the Box is commonplace, and so are complaints surrounding its in-game balance. Although Box players aren't dominating the rankings by any means, it's widely agreed that the Box is a better controller on paper. This is undoubtedly true due to its digital inputs and superior hardware. And while the Box may not be a concern in terms of tournament results, it's still justified for competitors to seek parity among tournament-legal equipment. When I published the Box Manifesto in 2018, I included chapters which gave my thoughts on the game mod known as UCF. UCF was adopted by the Melee community 1 year before the Box Manifesto was written. Having been involved with the discussions that led to UCF's adoption, I expressed concerns with some of the choices its developers made. My main concern was the exclusion of fixes for less well-known mechanics. As I explained in the manifesto, the lack of demand for certain fixes shouldn't have affected their inclusion, as demand is an arbitrary factor. Next, I criticized UCF's premise as a whole. The claim that UCF merely equalized GameCube controller hardware was not only untrue, but damaging in the long term. Every mechanic affected by UCF is objectively better than its vanilla equivalent, and there needed to be transparency about that. As time went on, Melee players generally became aware that the Box has many advantages over the GameCube controller. Because I knew that Melee needed to be modded in order to resolve this, I sought out to create 1.03 with Altimor. 1.03 is an ISO and memory card which contains many improvements over vanilla Melee. These include custom music, a new stage select screen, a fixed in-game HUD, and much more. Most importantly, 1.03 features its signature controller fix, which is intended to finish the job UCF started. It was only recently that Altimor and I finished the 1.03 controller fix, which would round out at 11 fixes in total. Since I've yet to create a video that recaps all 11 fixes, I figured I'd go ahead and do so that people can be familiar with all of them. Before I get into the fixes themselves, I'll start by clarifying 1.03's philosophy. 1.03 is transparent about the fact that when the Box was legalized in 2017, it created the implication that the GameCube controller would need to be patched. This is the only way to make it on par with digital inputs in certain areas. Additionally, there are some mechanics with game design oversights that ought to be fixed as well. Fixing these mechanics improves both the GameCube controller and Box. The first way to sort the 1.03 fixes is by category. The first category is a one-frame polling window, which consists of dashback, Doraki wall jump, wiggle, and SDI on frame 2 of hit lag. The second category contains other polling issues. The first fix that falls under this category is the SDI remainder fix, which I'll explain when the time comes. Then dash out of crouch falls under this category as well. Just like SDI, dash out of crouch consists of 2 fixes. The third category is microscopic range. Shield drop and 1.0 cardinal fall under this category. Then there's a category called corridor range, which consists of vertical throws and C-stick ledgefall. Finally, the hardware category contains a Z-jump toggle and an ADT shield fix. Next, there's another way these fixes can be sorted. The majority of 1.03's fixes can be justified based on the fact that the Box automatically plugs in with them. However, there are 2 fixes that fall outside of this scope. These are the increased timing window on dash out of crouch and the ADT shield fix. Both of these fixes are justified on a case-by-case basis that I'll eventually explain. They're also the only fixes that benefit the Box, as noted within the 1.03 manual. Without further ado, I'll explain the one-frame polling window fixes. Dashback, Doraki wall jump, wiggle, and SDI on frame 2 of hit lag are increased from a one-frame polling window on vanilla to a 2-frame window on 1.03. This allows you to perform each of these techniques consistently on a GameCube controller. For those unfamiliar with how frame 2 of hit lag works, this particular frame is normally prone to having SDI fail, and so fixing it increases the chance that your SDI input succeeds. Additionally, there are some other polling-related issues. SDI has another issue which can cause the magnitude of your SDI input to be stifled. This occurs because your controller can be pulled right as you enter the SDI range. On 1.03, we've addressed this by making it so that the remaining amount is given on the second frame within the SDI range, which ensures that the magnitude of your SDI input is consistent. An example of a situation in which this is helpful is escaping jab resets with SDI up. People are often cheated out of escaping jab resets on vanilla because full SDI magnitude is needed to escape them at lower percents. The other polling-related fixes are the dash out of crouch fixes. Just like SDI, dash out of crouch suffers from 2 separate issues. One of these issues has to do with the fact that there are 3 coordinates you have to cross in order to make it from crouch to dash. If you're pulled on any of these coordinates, you'll stand up from crouch, which will cause your dash out of crouch to fail. Since this creates a luck factor, we've made it so that this stand-up can't occur. The other dash out of crouch fix is even more important. As you'll notice, dash out of crouch has a curved travel route, making it unlike any other dash in the game. There's a game design oversight that results from this. The 2-frame window that was intended for a dash doesn't suffice for dash out of crouch's travel route, and so receiving a bad pull can cause this technique to fail. Thus, it's warranted to bump dash out of crouch to 3 frames. Between this fix and the previous one, dash out of crouch becomes a functional mechanic. Next, I'll go over the microscopic range fixes. Shield drop and 1.0 cardinal are nearly impossible to pinpoint on vanilla. UCF addresses shield drop by improving its range, but only partially. On 1.03, we've improved shield drop by as much as possible while doing the same for 1.0 cardinal. This gives the GameCube controller guaranteed accuracy over both of these techniques. The next category of fixes is corridor range. People may be unfamiliar with this category because it's not included on UCF. However, the corridor fixes are very important. The first corridor fix is vertical throws. As you can see, vertical throws normally have a thin range that goes straight up and down, which makes it possible to miss. 1.03 addresses this by increasing the range for vertical throws to the 50-degree line, which is the range used for up tilt and down tilt. This ensures that you can pinpoint vertical throws just as a controller with digital inputs would be able to. Similarly, falling from the ledge with the C-stick has an issue. If you ledge fall in a cardinal direction and then nudge your C-stick slightly to the side of the cardinal, you'll perform an aerial attack. This creates extreme risk, and so we've shifted the threshold for an aerial attack to the 50-degree line. C-stick ledge fall becomes a safe and reliable option once it has the improved threshold. Finally, the last 2 fixes fall under hardware. The first fix is a Z-jump toggle, which can be applied at the character select screen. People are generally familiar with the Z-jump layout being superior at this point. However, there's a flaw with this layout that's been overlooked, which is where the 11th and last fix comes into play. The flaw with the Z-jump layout is that if you're holding the controller with a traditional grip, your right index finger will be poised atop Z, and so your R button can only be comfortably used to wave dash. This means that L should be used for shield as well as L cancel in theory. However, the only way to achieve this is to modify a mechanic called ADT shield. ADT shield is a mechanic which can cause a trigger with a spring in it to fail to protect you from a physical attack if you receive a bad polling sequence. On 1.03, ADT is fixed so that the 2 vulnerable frames that would normally occur will protect you instead. This is significant because it affects the button layout from just a moment ago. The ADT fix allows an L trigger that has a spring in it to perform all of the duties it needs to. These are analog L cancel, light shield, and shield with ADT immunity. Since the ADT fix helps optimize the GameCube controller's hardware in a way that couldn't be achieved before, its value can't be understated. The ADT fix is also notable for being the second fix that improves the box, since it lets the box perform an ADT power shield while remaining protected from physical attacks. There's one last thing I should mention, which is that this video corresponds with the release of one last update to the 1.03 controller fix. If you've been following the recent updates, C-stick ledgefall and ADT were added earlier this month. Then one more update was given, but I've yet to announce it outside of my Discord server. This update addressed an oversight in the vertical throws fix. Previously, the vertical throws fix wasn't applying to unbuffered C-stick down throw. This had to do with the fact that C-stick down throw is coded differently than other throws. For those who don't know, C-stick down throw can be buffered due to a mistake in its code. An even less well-known fact about C-stick down throw is that when it isn't buffered, the down throw is delayed by a frame, which means that there's a dead frame before the down throw begins. It was because of this dead frame that the vertical throws fix wasn't applying correctly, but we fixed that as of the latest update. In conclusion, 1.03 marks the completion of a project that began in 2017, fixing Melee's uncompetitive mechanics. The box may have been what forced the issue in terms of fixing these mechanics, but truthfully, the fixes I've shown you would have been warranted even if just for the sake of modernizing the game. Either way, I strongly advise for the Melee community to adopt this patch sooner than later and without any alterations. That last part is important, as I should mention that fixing Melee is a science, not an art. What I mean by that is there are concrete justifications for the changes shown in this video, just as there are concrete justifications for the coordinates on the box. To give an example of a change which doesn't have a concrete justification, I'll go over UCF shield drop fix. This fix, which increases the shield drop range by 8 Y values, gives no reasoning as to why this range was chosen. The value of negative 0.7875 doesn't correspond with anything in-game, which means the Melee community has been playing with an arbitrary fix for quite some time. These are the types of design choices that Altimor and I made sure to avoid when we designed 1.03, as we wanted to make it feel like an official update. The latest 1.03 files are available at box.com as always. With that being said, thanks for tuning into the video. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like and subscribe.